we are now, I want to tell you a little bit about mission, vision, values of Kantency. For many organizations, this is an internal feature for their staff. For Kantency, we operate a little differently, and our mission, vision, values is actually a very strong reflection to the outer world of how we operate, our philosophy, our purpose, our purpose, really. We've had our values since the beginning. Our values haven't changed. I'll write them over here. So our values are context, communication, and collaboration. So those are our 3 core values. They have not changed since the beginning of the company. I will come back to those in a minute, because I first want to tell you about my mission and my vision. Those have changed, and it's very entertaining because what prompted the mission and vision statement was there was a class I was in, a business class, if you will, and the instructor gave us 2 hours in a 2-hour session, not only tried to teach us about mission and vision, but also expected us to curate and come up with our own mission and vision statement in 2 hours. There was at one point this instructor said, okay, now take 15 minutes to come up with your mission and your vision statements. And I went, question. First of all, did you say 1-5 or 5-0? They go 1-5, and I go, for both mission and vision? They're like, yeah. And I go, what? What? Because a mission and vision statement, they are very particular statements. They are structured in a very particular way. As a result, in this class, most of my classmates, their vision was to have 10 locations across Canada in 10 years. And I go, sweetheart, that is a goal, that is not a vision. A vision statement, I am of the firm belief that a vision statement is something that you constantly aspire to, and yet should always just remain out of reach. You should never really fulfill a vision statement because it's always something to achieve. Google, for example, I believe their vision statement is to organize the world's information. Good luck ever completely doing that, but it's always something to aspire and strive towards, right? A mission is how you do that. Like, how do you do that? There's also Simon Sinek, if you're familiar, you're probably familiar with his whole start with why concept, where you've got why, what, and how, I think. And so essentially your why is your vision, your what is your mission, and your how is your product. So for Apple, their why is something along the lines of, if I can remember the Simon Sinek video, is like, everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. Vision. No, it's backwards. I believe it's how, and then what. Yeah. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We do that by making products that are user-friendly, innovative, and easy to use. We just happen to make computers one by one. That, to me, is a mission and vision. It doesn't matter what you do, because your how and your why are still there. Why are you doing it? How are you going about doing it? And what do you happen to produce as a result? That is, to me, what a good mission and vision statement do. So I'd like to share with you what Kantency is. So, our vision is, do I say it out loud? Or just, I'll like fast forward this part, so I'll say it at the end. Kantency exists to shift humanity into a new era where we deepen the way we connect so individuals can thrive and villages can rise. That is our vision. We're all about deepening the way we connect. That is our entire thing, is everything we do comes back to deepening connection. And we want to shift humanity into a new era. This becomes the core, is deepening the way. So we want to go big. That is a big vision statement. Will we ever do it? Stay tuned. And you could argue that this next part is kind of part of the how, but it's not. It kind of just is a reinforcement of what does it mean to deepen the way we connect. For us, we want individuals to thrive and villages to rise, because it's this whole beautiful balance of the individual and the collective. Yes, the individual needs to be the best that they can, and when the individual is the best that they can, the village as a whole rises. And if a village rises without the individuals thriving, then that village is doomed to collapse. They both need to be in partnership. Individuals need to be the best version of themselves, and the villages need to stand up and hold that container it's just this big, cohesive, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So that's our vision. It's all about deepening the way we connect. Everything we do is to deepen the way that we connect. Everything we do. So now, what is our mission statement? This one's a bit lengthier, so uno momento. Mission statement. We do this by bridging the gap between efficiency and empathy, and by transforming certainty into curiosity until understanding becomes intuitive and collaboration becomes instinct. That's a lot. I know. Is anyone surprised? Probably not. Of course, Carly's mission statement is going to be deep and intentional. It's incredibly intentional. Because it's all about shifting, right? If I want to shift humanity into a new era, we have to shift from one thing to the next. And if we're going to deepen the way we connect, what does that look like? What can that look like? How do we know, what guideposts do we use along the way to indicate if we are moving towards this vision? Well, it's efficiency and empathy. We are bridging the gap between efficiency and empathy. It's the individuals and the villages. The villages are efficient creatures. Efficient organisms, entities. Individuals are incredibly empathetic. So how do we bridge the gap between efficiencies of systems and the empathy of people? We have to bridge that gap, because right now sometimes they just seem a little bit disconnected, which again, we are trying to deepen the way we connect, so we need to bridge this gap to deepen their connection. And we want to transform certainty into curiosity. We're transforming. Right? We want to shift from thinking that we know everything to being curious about even more. Right? Because that's part of the way we deepen the way we connect. If we are certain about something, then we stay at the level of certainty, versus whenever we shift into curiosity, we are deepening connection. We are deepening and being curious about how do we get villages to rise, and how do we get individuals to thrive and villages to rise? We may never be certain. And as long as we approach with curiosity, we will always be pursuing this vision. And we have a destination, which you could argue is part of the vision. Like I'm very passionate about mission and vision statements, and they're not set in stone structures because they speak to the company. This structure speaks to Kantency very well, because I also want to have what I perceive to be the how outcome. Why I'm doing it is I want to deepen the way we connect. How am I doing it? I have a goal. That's not really a goal. It's like a subsection vision how goal. You know what I mean? Understanding becomes intuitive, and collaboration becomes instinct. To deepen the way we connect, we need curiosity to help us have our understanding become intuitive. When we stay at certainty, we miss the opportunity to connect because the deep connection happens intuitively, but we need to be able to understand for it to be intuitive, you know? And I want collaboration to become instinct. If our whole thing is to deepen the way we connect so villages can rise, that means collaboration is very, very important, and I want it to become instinctual. This is admittedly heavily influenced by currently living in North America, growing up in a hyper-individualistic society where I am witnessing individuals thriving at the expense of villages. So collaboration is not instinct. The instinct of the people is me first, me only. I don't want that. I want to go back to these being cohesive. I want collaboration to be instinct. The deeper that we can connect, the more instinctual it is to have our villages rise. So we want to bridge the gap between empathy and efficiency. We want to transform certainty into curiosity until understanding becomes intuitive and collaboration becomes instinct. What does this look like? We just happen to be an organizational change consulting company, right? Like, why are we doing it? We want to deepen the way we connect. How are we doing it? Everything that we do, similar to Apple, like everything we do is sleek, user-friendly, and innovative. We just have to make computers. Everything that I do is about deepening the way we connect. Everything we do just happens to be about transforming certainty into curiosity, making sure that understanding becomes intuitive, and collaboration becomes instinct. What do we do what is it that we do to get there? We just happen to be in organizational change consulting. Love it. Okay, so now context, communication, collaboration. Didn't leave myself very much more writing room, and that's okay. So, actually, I think we are going to shift this guy a little bit. This is not very good. Whiteboard markers. Hold on. Okay. All right. Oh, making a mess. Okay. Context, communication, and collaboration. They are our core pillars, and they're technically upside down. Because, is that still in frame? Yeah. So, context, communication, collaboration for us follows this upside down triangle, because even our values have intentions to them and depth. So, we use this upside down triangle quite a lot. And in its essence, it represents surface level and then depth and core, right? Here's how, when I say it's upside down, this is what I mean. Upside down. Context, communication, collaboration. However, when I say it, it goes this way. It's weird at this point. And anyways, I'm not going to psychoanalyze, and I'm going to put the lid on this before I accidentally wreck my dress. It goes upside down for a reason. Collaboration is at the top. And what collaboration represents is it represents, I'm stuck until I can get a color. What color do I want? I initially wanted blue, but I'm already blue. Pink, is that too similar to red? Is that even going to show up? Let's go purple. Let's go purple. Okay. Collaboration's on top. Because what does collaboration represent? Well, we already know that collaboration we want to become instinct. And we want villages to rise. So again, villages rise, collaboration's at the top. This is kind of the pinnacle of what we want, right? Now, for us, collaboration is, of course, deeper than that, because collaboration is surface level, what we see. It's a symptom on the surface because when people are working together, they are giving off cues that indicate how the ecosystem and how the village, how the systems are operating. It gives indication to their level of healthiness. And when we see that collaboration isn't quite going the way that we thought that it would or that we want it to, or when we see things on the surface that are prompting us to go, there's something deeper, we then shift to communication. We shift to communication and we go, okay, well, let's use language to now identify this thing on the surface that doesn't, like we witness collaboration with our eyes because it's what we see in front of us. We witness how collaboration's happening. Communication is the words that we say. So it's, I guess just literally it's the words that we say. So we witness something and then we find the words to communicate what's going on to try and better understand it. And based on the words that we curate, gives an indication to an action of how to go back and modify our collaboration. And this becomes a nasty little circle. Because we go, okay, I see something, I talked about it, let's go back and see if we can fix it. Oh, didn't get fixed, let's go talk about it. And then you just get caught in the rat race, the tunnel vision, the loop of insanity. And now what? Why are we not getting to more effective change? Why are we putting out the same fires every day? Well, it's because we're missing the deep context that of like understanding, curiosity, intuitiveness. We're missing context. Because we have to remember that even the words that we say are simply a symbol. Language is very limiting. There are words that exist in some languages that don't exist in others, and there's people that when they learn another language, they become very frustrated because they're like, I'm trying to explain myself and I don't know how to explain myself with words, but I know that I understand the context of what's happening. I know the concept, I know the depth, I just don't have the words, and it's influencing how I can collaborate on the surface. So even words are simply a tool, a symbol, that are trying to encompass this deeper context. But if we don't go straight to the context, then our communication is surface level compared to what it could be. So context is now the what do we want to call it? Actually, let's go Y, WWW. Not on purpose, believe it or not. That's just a happy accident. So witness, words, and why. We could call Y the deep understanding, the instinctiveness, the intuitiveness, that deep connection. Because when we're using words, we're ultimately trying to figure out what's going on with behavior, what's going on with a situation, what's happening kind of between the lines that we're not seeing, right? We have a suspicion something's happening, something's going on. We're bringing it to our awareness and saying it. Are we taking everything into consideration? Probably not. So context is so important, and that's actually a core influence as to where the name Kantency came from, is to remind people to take context into consideration. If you haven't watched that video, that's a whole other wonderful video explaining the Kantency name origin. So when we can get to the deep understanding of why, the beautiful part about it is that words no longer matter. When we have a deep understanding of something, it doesn't matter what words that we use on the surface, collaboration is going to be enhanced. So we can actually now bypass communication. Not because we're bypassing it intentionally, but because it's now become instinctive and intuitive. Communicating with one another, when we deepen the way we connect, no longer relies on language as the only form of communication. We are now, when we can communally understand, when we can intuitively understand the context of something, we can communicate with one another beyond words, which allows us to enhance our collaboration. Therefore, deepen the way we connect. That's one explanation of this upside down triangle. I'm sure that the next time I explain it to somebody, it's going to have a slightly different explanation, yet it's still going to convey the exact same message because of exactly what my point is. It doesn't matter what words I use to explain this concept, right? This is ultimately, we're now going to shift just a little bit to orange. Sure. We bypassed it just because I skipped it up. Anyways, we can also think of it as a concept. Once you understand the deep concept of something, it doesn't matter what words you use to explain it. It's understood on an intuitive level, so we can collaborate now instinctively, i.e. deepen the way we connect. So that's our mission, vision, values, and where they came from and what they represent. And it is the foundation for everything that we do. Everything that we do. Again, that circle, that Simon Sinek circle. What do you do? Apple just happens to make computers. We just happen to be in organizational change consulting. So, aiming to help businesses deepen the way that they connect so that the people in their organizations can thrive and they themselves as a company can thrive. Within a company, within organizations, we want to bridge the gap between efficiency and empathy. We want the systems of a organization and the empathy of the people operating the systems. We want that bridge to be gapped so that the ecosystem of the organization can be thriving. When the systems are efficient and the people are broken down, you don't have a very high-rising village. When you have very empathetic people and broken systems, you don't have a very high-rising village. We need to bridge the gap so that within an organization, we have both. We bridge that gap. And when we do this, we want to transform certainty into curiosity. Human beings are creative creatures. And when these two things aren't connecting, innovation can't happen in an organization that doesn't have curiosity. Innovation can only happen in an organization where curiosity is thriving. Which means we need to teach people the tools, we need to teach the individuals how to thrive, and a way that we teach individuals to thrive is by shifting them from thinking in certainty to thinking in curiosity. When people have the tools to think curiously, they thrive, which naturally causes the village to rise, i.e. the company, the organization, the workplace, the purpose of the company, whatever your mission, vision, values are, is amplified. When we go into an organization, we want understanding to become intuitive. We want the people in the organization to just know what to do. If they have to spend that brain power to understand the systems or to understand the other people, that is brain power that is costing this bridge. Yet if we can have this bridge of empathy and efficiency be deeply understood, then working and them doing the best of their ability, if not better, becomes intuitive. People in an organization want to do the best that they can. They want to be better than what they thought was possible, which means they need to be innovative. And they need the tools to be able to do all this kind of stuff. We want understanding to become intuitive, so that collaboration can become instinct. When we have an organization that is collaborating instinctively, talk about a well-oiled machine. Like the bridge that's the gap that's bridged between efficiency and empathy, when collaboration becomes instinct, imagine what that could look like. Imagine how your village can rise when the people in your organization are operating collaboratively on an instinctive level. Imagine what that could look like. Imagine if the people in your organization thrived. What would that mean for the village? What would innovation look like? What would creativity look like? What would well-being look like? What would a deep connection look like if this mission and vision statement were embodied in your organization, if people had the tools to thrive, your village could rise, and just everything became this deep connecting, well-oiled machine. This is a mic. Yeah, that was a bit corny. Still working on my video transitions though, so that was my attempt. Okay. Thank you for listening. That is Kantency's foundation in a nutshell.